Good morning, friends, and welcome back. I took this very adorable picture from the Goodwill store, or I bought it at the Goodwill store. I'm certainly not going to take anything from there. And I turned it into this for Christmas. I decorated the frame a little bit, then painted it, and I'm going to show you what I used to put on this glass. So this is just rubbing alcohol. I wanted to clean the whole surface, front and back, the glass as well as the wood. And I removed the label, which I know I should have done before the rubbing alcohol, but I just used one of these razors to remove that. Then I flipped this over and I took everything out of this picture frame. I noticed there were a lot of staples in here, so I just used whatever tools I had on hand to get rid of all of those and pulled the back of this out. I then used the alcohol again to clean the glass, and you'll notice in this project I did not paint the back of this, and that's because I was just trying to get the video out in time. So the back is not painted. I'll do that later. So I had seen this done a long time ago. You take any of these, it's Christmas garland actually. It doesn't matter what color it is because we're going to paint it. And you use some very strong adhesive. I'll have links down below for everything. And I put this in the crevice. There's a natural curve in here, and I just put all of these pearls inside this natural crevice. You can see I spilled a little bit of glue here, so I'm just going to put some alcohol on my paper towel and wipe that away because that does happen pretty frequently with this glue, and you definitely want to get it while it's wet because when this dries, it is permanent. I also took low-tack painter's tape and lined the inside of the glass because we're now going to use some Americana Deco Art chalky finish paint. And this is just on the front. You really should do it on the back also, add the tape on the back. But like I said, I wanted to get this video out in time, so I said, let me just focus on the front of this for now. And even though I like the way a pouncer brush spreads the chalk paint, I really needed to get into all of these crevices, and I discovered that if you go in kind of an X motion with a paintbrush, and it's got to be a pretty sturdy paintbrush, you can get inside of those pearls, the spaces in between, and paint this whole thing white. And you can see how it is changing the look of the frame. So it's going to go from being a little bit on the plain side to just having a little bit of a decorative element to it. And you can see I switched brushes here, and this one seemed to work even a little better. So I went around the whole frame on the front and I painted over these pearls. This part only took me about 15, maybe 20 minutes to make sure I got into all of those crevices, and then I let this dry. And because this is chalk paint, it dries pretty quickly. And just while I'm painting this, I want to remind you guys that I did write an ebook, and if you don't have a Kindle, you can go to the link below and turn your smartphone or your iPad, your iPhone, anything that they call a smart device, you can turn into a Kindle for free. Amazon allows you to do that, and then the books are a lot less expensive that way also. Plus you can get them immediately and not have to go inside of a store or a library. So I'm going to put the links down below for that. The ebook is called Successful Decoupage Every Time, and I wrote it to help not only beginners but people who have been doing decoupage for a long time, but they just stumble across quite a few problems or questions they may have along the way. There are links back to videos so that you can see more clearly what I'm describing. Okay, now I'm going to remove all of the tape. Everything has dried, and again, because it's chalk paint, it dried pretty quickly. One side dried while I was painting the other. And then I went to Hobby Lobby and I found this fabric that I thought was so pretty. And because I don't sew, sometimes these fabrics inspire me to incorporate these into my decoupage projects. So I bought the fabric and decided I would decoupage it onto this glass inside this frame. So since I'm doing reverse decoupage here, I have the back of the frame exposed. This fabric, you want to make sure it's straight on here. So I straightened it out and I used a couple of tacks to make sure it stayed in place. And just make sure you check on the front to see that the fabric is where you want it to be. If you got any paint on your glass like I did right there, all you need to do is use either a little bit of alcohol or a razor and that will scrape right off. And what I did here was I took a magic marker because I've got too much fabric obviously, and I drew around the very outside of the frame so that I knew just how much fabric to use, and then I simply cut all of that away. I did leave about an excess inch on the end though. So now I'm going to mention a couple of things. This is a very fine mist of water that I'm using here, and I want to wet the fabric a little bit just to make sure that my medium goes through the fabric. So there's a very fine mist over the fabric, and the fabric is very thin. This is matte medium. This is the DecoArt matte medium. And the reason that I'm using this is because if you've ever done reverse decoupage, once in a while, actually it's pretty common, you can see shiny little wet spots on the front of the glass, even though your project is completely dry. So I am going to put a whole layer of matte medium over the surface. The matte medium, for some reason, really helps to get rid of those wet spots or those wet looking spots. You guys know that there is a decoupage glue that I really don't like at all, mainly because it's the bane of my existence. I get questions all the time about this one brand of decoupage glue, and everybody has problems with it, so I don't use that. I really would rather not say what type it is, but that's why I recommend these products. So this product in particular will help you to eliminate that problem, those wet spots on the front. Now you see how I just added a little more water. I'm trying to spread out the matte medium, and like in most of my decoupage projects, you want to start in the center and push the glue outward. I'm also using a paintbrush that's got a pretty sturdy bristle on it because you want to get into the fiber of the fabric. And when you're painting out like this, you're doing two things. Just like with a napkin, you want to remove any air bubbles. You're stretching the fabric a tiny bit here, and you're making sure that this is going to be a nice smooth surface so that when it dries there are no air bubbles, there are no lumps, there's nothing like that in there. And I needed to dry this overnight. This is a lot of this medium, even though I am watering it down a bit. Now you can see I have excess fabric there, which is what I wanted. You're going to either put the backing on there and keep that fabric there and you won't be able to see it, or if you're doing like I did and you're just going to place this in front of lights, or you can hang this on the wall just as is when it dries. Put lights behind it. You don't need to do anything to that fabric, so you can leave that little excess bit there, whether you put the backing on it or leave it as is. So there is one thing that I want you to do before you let this dry overnight. You want to take a very close look at the front of this while it's still wet. And you will notice that you may have some spots. I'm sorry, the camera's a little shaky. You may have some spots like this. If you notice in the bottom corner here, you can see some air bubbles underneath the fabric, and you want to make sure that you get those out. And you can simply use your fingers. I'm trying to adjust the light here so you can see what I'm doing. My fingers are now behind this, and I am pressing any of those air bubbles out to the edge. You can see how I still have some chalk paint on the front of this from where the tape was. So I'm just going to look at this in the best light possible And I'm going to get all of these air bubbles out, and they usually do occur around the edges or the corners or the sides anyway. So just make sure you do that before this dries. And to secure this, after this first coating of the matte medium dried, I took matte decoupage glue and I applied it in that same manner and let it dry overnight again. And here's how this looks the following morning. And you can see that those silver pearls are now just a white pearl, an accent onto this piece. The frame now matches the picture. And it's not quite as sunny out as I would like it, so I'll put a little bit of light in back of this. But this is how this really easy project looks now that it's all done, it's dry, and it's ready to either be hung or put in front of a window or any place where you get some light coming through. And I think our project turned out pretty nice for this week. I mean, the fabric was only a few dollars. The frame was certainly only a few dollars. I love when I can upcycle anything. And I have my Christmas lights away until this weekend. And I did put a little bit of light in back of this so you can get an idea of how it looks even prettier with lights behind it. And I did not wash the fabric first. You may want to wash it. Don't use fabric softener though. So guys, I have a couple of videos coming up at the end of this video. If you feel like it, click on those and have a look. There are links down below to the products as well as my ebook. And thank you so much for subscribing. I read all of your comments. If you share my videos, it is a huge help to me. It is certainly allowed, and I encourage you to share the videos. It's a big help to me. And thank you so much. Some of you guys, I see your comments like every week or very often, and I'm very touched by that. It's really nice to hear from you guys. So thanks a lot, my friends. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving if you're here in the United States. I do want to add that, like a lot of you, I can't see my family this year, so I'm pretty saddened by that, but we'll get through it and enjoy our holiday with each other. Otherwise, I will see you hopefully next week with another video. All right, take it easy, my friends. Bye-bye.